Hey friends, Allison here, dropping in to share with you some new creative inspiration for Scrapbook Nerd. I am creating a new page that will go into my October daily album. It's an out-of-the-page protector layout and it is shaped like a cell phone. Actually, it is a cell phone. I used my Cricut to cut the cell phone template. I cut two of them because it's going to end up being a pocket. Inside the pocket will be my photo and my journaling. Right now I'm working on the outside of the pocket. So I just used plain white cardstock for the cell phone template, and I'm using some Tim Holtz Distress ink in Hickory Smoke to stamp a speech bubble. There it is. Speech bubble design in the background. I did that on both sides of the pocket so they all look the same. I also decided to add some inking around the edges of the cell phone template as well, because as we all know, not a lot of cell phones out there are white to begin with. So just to give it a little bit more color and make it feel a little more authentic, I decided to ink the edges. I also cut some speech bubbles from using my Cricut as well. I cut it from Cocoa Vanilla Studio Sunkissed pattern paper. I used the 6x8 paper pad again, and I used the green ombre paper to cut them. I realized that the speech bubbles in text messages are not ombre, kind of like they are in Facebook Messenger, but I kind of had Facebook Messenger in mind when I was creating this, and rather than sticking with the usual like blue and green speech bubbles in text messages, I welded the two together and made it sort of like a Facebook Messenger and text message combo. So that's where the ombre paper comes in. Right here, I was just trying to figure out what phrases I wanted to add to the centers of the speech bubbles. Two of the speech bubbles are going to have stamped phrases. One says something like thinking of you. The other one says just because. I stamped both those phrases in black ink. And the last one is actually going to be 3 little white dots. I used white enamel dots to create the dots to replicate a speech bubble, what it looks like when you know somebody is texting, but they haven't actually hit the send button yet. So I'm working on that right now. If you see funny hand movements or pauses during my video today, I was creating this in the evening. My kids were home. Actually, the whole family was home because we were storm stayed. We had a massive blizzard a couple days ago. And I was trying to play around my kids. My kids were using my computer. They were coming in to ask me questions. Even my husband was doing the same thing. So lots of interruptions during my process today, but that's okay. It made it that much more memorable. I'm adding foam squares to my speech bubbles now for my text conversation. The reason I chose a cell phone template or theme for this layout is because I'm actually scrapbooking a picture that I took, a screenshot I should say, of a text conversation I had with my mom. I printed the conversation out and it is going to be inside the pocket when this page comes together. At this point, I decided I was going to add an imposter pop socket. Pop sockets are huge nowadays. I have one on my cell phone. Both my daughters have ones on their cell phones, and just about everybody we know have them as well. And I thought it would be a really nice touch to put on the back side of this pocket. So I took another piece of paper from the Sunkissed collection. This is the floral one. I used just something that I had on hand to trace a circle because I couldn't use my Cricut or computer to do it because my daughter was using it at this point. So if you're not able to use your tools because somebody else is occupying your space, a great way to get around that is finding something in your craft space or in your house that will act as a replacement for different shapes. So that's what I did here. And then I roughly cut a circle from white cardstock that's just barely larger than the floral circle. I'm adding it to the back of the cell phone with foam squares just to make it feel, once again, a little bit more authentic. And here I pulled out the puffy stickers from Sunkissed and added them to the speech bubbles as well, because as you know, when you're texting, you can add all sorts of images and icons to your text messages. So I pulled out the sunglasses and I pulled out a flower, and that is it for the embellishing on the outside of this pocket. Oh, I do add a puffy flower to the pop socket as well. Once that is done, I move to the inside of my pocket and what's going to go inside of it. I typed my journaling on the computer and then printed it with my home printer. Oh, pardon me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I do that, I was inspired to add a little bit more stamping to the front and the back of my cell phone. So I went back to my stamp sets, found 2 other phrases that were on the smaller side and stamped them inside the speech bubbles in the background. Not all of them, just a few around the page, just to add a little bit more interest and make them just a little bit more noticeable. And I absolutely love how this turned out. I used the same ink as I did earlier. So that is Hickory Smoke from Tim Holtz. I do that on the front and the back. And then once that's done, I work on the inside of my pocket. I don't know if I mentioned or not, the white enamel dots that I used for the last speech bubble actually come from Waffle Flower. So if you need more enamel dots or any of the products that I used in today's layout, make sure you check out Scrapbook Nerd. There is still Cocoa Vanilla left in the shop, of course, Waffle Flower and enamel dots, and also Distress inks and Distress oxide products as well. So here's my journaling. As I was saying, I printed it out and typed it on my computer. I also printed my own photo. I trimmed the photo down from 4x6 to 3.5x6, just so that I didn't compromise too much of the text conversation that I wanted to highlight. I added that to just some scrap white cardstock to give it a little bit more sturdiness. And then the journaling was adhered to the back side of that. I used a journaling card that I had in my stash. And I used it because it has a tab on it. I figured that would be a built-in easy way to have a little pull tab so that it's easy to pull the journaling out from the pocket. I also trimmed that journaling card down, which started out as 4x6 to 3.5x6. So everything matched up and was the same. I used a corner rounder just to round the edges that got trimmed off. So everything matched. I also took some of the titles from the Sunkissed collection and I'm adding it to the bottom of my journaling. There was a little bit of space left over that I didn't quite know what to do with. In the end, I decided to add the title, which is going to be Cheers. I was thinking about adding my day number, which by the way is day 8 in my October daily, but there would still be way too much space around it. So in the end, like I said, I went with Cheers. I tried out a few different titles and the one that filled the space the best was Cheers. So it was the winner. I added a heart to the top of the journaling as well. And my day number is going to go over top of my photo. I was going to use these LE Studio numbers, but they were too small once again. So I turned to the LE Studio acetate alphabet and numbers, and it was perfect. And it was the right color for my color scheme as well. So I stuck with that. I found the number 8, and I'm going to staple it to the front side of, well, to the photo. I opened it up just a little bit, the pocket where I had it adhered, so that I was able to staple it and not staple the entire pocket, if that makes sense. I just stapled the one page. That brings me to the end of my process today. My husband asked me how I ever came up with this idea. I don't know. I knew that I wanted to scrapbook a text conversation that I had with my mom, and the rest just came naturally. Here's the close-ups. Like I said, if you are interested in any of the products that I used today, I will leave the link to Scrapbook Nerd down below so that you know where to find them. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and a like. And I will be back again soon with more creative inspiration. Bye, friends.